Today my adventure begins right here at the old Bates Motel. Yeah, you would have to be a real psycho to go in there. Good morning, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Hitch Hiking Yeti here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have made my way back into South Carolina. I'm in the low country. We are in an area that is called Allendale County. And we're going to go do some small town stuff this morning as I'm driving towards Savannah. And I thought, heck, I seen this old motel right off the highway here, just outside of Allendale. And I thought, heck, what a good spot to start off the vlog. Looks pretty creepy. Let's do it. And speaking of creepy, sometimes you just get the feeling that something or someone is watching you. Yes. There's definitely some Halloween decor out here. Skeleton, old pirate with a patch on his eye, and then an old witch hanging on the wall. Now, normally when I go to abandoned locations, I always like to give a little history about what it used to be, but today, since I just kind of ran up on this one, I don't really know what this motel, what the name of it was or whatnot, but I'm sure it was a very popular stop for folks traveling to Florida back in the day, probably pre-Interstate 95. Interstate 95 really sucks the life out of some of these small towns off of Highway 321 and places like that. But whatever this place used to be, you can tell by the grounds and the overgrowth that it is not being used in quite some time. As you look around the property here, trees are definitely taken over. Okay, and right up here along the highway is the old office of this old motel. And it's right here on the highway that leads into Allendale, which that's where we're headed right now. So let's continue on. Okay, I've continued on Highway 301 into Allendale. Allendale is a small town with a surprisingly rich history. Although today it is a quiet rural community, it was once a thriving railroad and highway town that served travelers between the Northeast on their way to Florida. So the town began because of the railroad. In 1872, the Charleston and Western Carolina Railway extended its line through the area. Businesses quickly sprang up around the depot, and the town was officially incorporated in 1873. So the interesting thing about Allendale was not always in its current location. The original settlement of Allendale was about 2 miles southwest of today's downtown area. During Sherman's march to the sea in 1865, Union troops passed through the area, and the community later relocated to the new railroad line where modern Allendale developed. Okay, so I'm standing here on road S38. And look at this tower they have here in town. That thing is super tall. Now this here is called the Allendale Standpipe. It is a historic water tower here in Allendale and is one of only 3 surviving standpipe style water towers in South Carolina. I'm wanting to say I was in Walterboro a few years ago and I seen one like this, possibly. It is an important landmark because it represents the town's early public water system and engineering history. It was built in 1915. And right here next to Hardee's is a Red Dot store, which if you know anything about South Carolina, that means they sell alcohol here, a liquor store. All right, I've made my way over here to the post office here in Allendale, South Carolina, zip code 29810, which kind of segues in to the naming of the town. Has to do with postal stuff. So the town takes its name from the prominent Allen family, particularly Paul Allen, who became the area's first postmaster. So Allendale County is South Carolina's youngest county. In 1919, residents successfully petitioned to create a new county from parts of Barnwell County and Hampton County because traveling to distant courthouses was difficult. Allendale County became the county seat. So I know it don't look like it today because of all the abandoned storefronts here in town, but this was once a major tourist stop. Before Interstate 95 opened, thousands of motorists traveled US Route 301 through Allendale on their way to Florida. In its peak, the town had dozens of gas stations, restaurants, nationally known motels, serving vacationers. When I-95 diverted traffic to the east, much of the businesses disappeared. So before we leave the area, I want to talk a little bit about the stats of this town, as I like to do. Population here is 3,014, and the median age is 38.7. So let's look at demographics. 13.92% is white, 85.44% is black, 0.27% is Asian, 0.37% is American Indian. Then we're going to look at the index income. Income per capita is $19,691, which is well below the South Carolina and the national average, as you can see. The median household income is only $27,402. And look how that compares to $68,647 of South Carolina and the national average of $81,333. Very low. And then we scroll down. Poverty level here in Allendale is pretty bad. 37.7% of people live in poverty. That is way above the South Carolina 17.2 and the national of 15.1. Now, this is the big stat. We're going to look at crime. Total crime here in Allendale is 7,160 per 100K, or 7.1 per 1,000. That is a very high total crime number. And then when you look at that in percentages, it breaks it down very nicely. Total crime here is 238% higher than the national average. Violent crime here is an astounding 530% above the national average in violent crimes. And then the property crime is 178% above the national average. That is pretty bad. Oh, check this out. A train's coming through here and that gentleman jumped off. Wonder what he's doing. He's down there close to where you would normally change the tracks. That was really cool. I don't think I've ever seen a train come through a town quite that slow. He was really crawling. Looks like he's fixing to come to a complete stop down there on the track. All right, so that was pretty cool. Did get to see a train today. That makes me happy. I always like to see trains when I come to small towns, and normally I have pretty good luck here in South Carolina to catch a train going through, more so than North Carolina. South Carolina has a lot of train tracks with a lot of movement. So all that being said, we're gonna move on now. And I got a couple more towns I wanna go check out before I head on to Savannah tonight, where I'm gonna lay my head. So all that being said, good to have you here. Let's keep it going. Now I'm headed down Allendale Fairfax Highway, which Fairfax is the next town we're going to. Which I know some of you are probably wondering, I didn't start my video out with my cup of coffee. That's because I left North Carolina this morning at 5 a.m. and I arrived down here around 8:30, so I have already consumed it. But I did have one. Okay, and I have made my way down here to the Fairfax City Hall. As you can see, it's going to be a pretty toasty one today, as it's already 79 degrees. So the population here in Fairfax is 2,305 with a median age of 40.7. And now we're going to look at demographics. 12.9% is white, 78.94% is black, 0.54% is American Indian, and 7.63% is other race. And now let's look at income index. Income per capita here in Fairfax is $28,463, and that is definitely below the South Carolina national average. The median household income is $40,517. well below the South Carolina national averages also. And then when we scroll down to the bottom, we see the poverty level is still pretty high. Not as high as Allendale, but it is still a 30.7, which is well above the South Carolina 17.2 and 15.1 of national. Now let's look at crime. Crime here, much better story. Only 1,392 total crime per 100K, or 1.3 per 1,000. That is a much better number. And then when we look at that in our percentages, that is 34% below the total crime national average, 30% below the violent crime national average, and 35% below the property crime national average. Okay, and right here next to the City Hall is a really cool looking place, an old house that has been turned into the Fairfax Public Library. And the reason I know it used to be a homestead is because I was reading online, and a local woman here named Virginia Durant Young actually lived here. Okay, so I kind of was looking around the property here. It's right next door to the Fairfax Police Department. But I was looking for some kind of information plaque maybe that talked about Virginia Durant Young, but I couldn't find anything. So I went online real quick and I found out that Virginia Durant Young was one of South Carolina's most important early advocates for women's rights. She was a journalist, a newspaper editor, a novelist. She was very important and from like women movements of the late 1800s. She lived in Fairfax, South Carolina, where she became a well-known community leader. And that is why her house still stands here today, and she's celebrated in some way. And being that she was a journalist and a newspaper editor, and she obviously loves books because she loved to write, I guess that's why they chose this old homestead to turn it into the Fairfax Public Library. There goes another train. So the arrival of the Port Royal Railroad in 1873 transformed the area into a shipping center for cotton, timber, and farm products. A second railroad later crossed through Fairfax, making it an important railroad junction here in the Low Country. And the cool thing about that is you can see where the railroads actually cross right down here where the old depot sits, which we're going to be heading down that way here in a minute. So Fairfax received its first charter in 1893 and was incorporated 3 years later in 1896 with W.J. Sanders serving as its first mayor. Okay, so now I'm going to walk along 7th Street right here. And this town was built by entrepreneurs. Local businessman F.M. Young built the town's first brick store and operated a cotton gin, electric plant, a telephone company, and even an ice plant. His family's investments helped modernize Fairfax in the early 1900s. And it doesn't seem to be much of anything open in most of these businesses right here. They got this soul food restaurant that's looks like it still might be open. Very interesting artwork. They must love masks. From a distance, I thought it was a video game store. I thought that was like Mortal Kombat characters, you know, ninjas, but I got a little bit closer and being able to read a little bit, that's not the case. Okay, and sure enough, this is a little police department substation and information center, as you can read it right up there over the front door. Then they got a little plaque over here on the side. It says Town of Fairfax Police Department Substation and Information Center, erected October 1966. That is pretty awesome. Pretty cool. So let's go ahead. I want to walk over here and check out this old depot that sits right here in the intersection of the train tracks. And right here is the U.S. Post Office here in Fairfax. I see up there over the awning It has a date or a year. It says 1950. But the weird thing is I do not see a zip code labeled anywhere on the front of this building. And that is very rare. I don't think I've ever ran into that before. But yeah, there is none. But that's okay, because the zip code here in town, I looked it up, is actually 29827. So yeah, we don't need it stamped on the building. It's all good. Okay, I've made my way over here to where the two railroad tracks cross. And this is a first for me. I've never been this close to see train tracks cross like this. But right here at the intersection of the crossing of the train tracks, or crossing that don't cross the streams. Little Ghostbuster reference there. This here is the old depot here, which is now a Fairfax Senior Citizen Center, it looks like. Going off of that signage right here that needs probably repaired. It's like it's seen better days. Could not find any documentation online about exactly when they built the train depot here in town, but since we do know in 1873 is when the Port Royal Railroad showed up, online it just says shortly after that is when they built the depot. So that's about all I know, but it's kind of cool that it's still here. If this is the original one, it looks pretty old, but that roof definitely looks to be needing replaced, that's for sure. But all that being said, I think it's time to vacate Fairfax and move on down the road to our final town today. A little place called Estill. All right, I was fixing to vacate Fairfax, but I ran across this place called Wally's Collectibles. And this is right up my alley. There is some awesome relics at this place. Check this out. Oh, 7-Up sign up there. Old Royal Crown or RC Cola sign up there. How cool is this? I guess this stuff's for sale. It says pay cash, old signs. Gas pumps. Buy signs. Cooler, Pepsi, Coke. Look at all of these relics that are here on this front porch. This old push mower. What the heck? I don't know what the heck that is. It looks like a mine. you put in the ocean. There's an old stove. I think my grandparents used to have a stove that looked similar to that. Yeah, they've got all kinds of interesting toys. Old wagons. This old Pepsi sign right there, that's pretty awesome. Say Pepsi, please. And then right next to it, we got a cool rusted out Coke sign, very vintage. This old football helmet. Thought that was a Washington Redskin helmet from a distance, but I was wrong. Be illegal to have that. Have you ever seen this sign before? Right here. Diet Right Cola. Less than 1 calorie per bottle. I have never heard of that or seen that. Put in the comment section down below if you've ever checked that out before. You know, and of course they got a toilet out here. And yeah, Wally's Collectibles, buy, sell, or trade. He's got a guard dog out here that's come up to visit me. Check out these old signs out here. Gulf, America, Esso. Got some old Coca-Cola coolers. Right there's his guard dog. I'm just kidding. I don't know if it's his guard dog or not. He's pretty harmless. I think he just don't know who I am, but he come up and wanted to sniff a little bit. But yeah, this is an awesome place. I just had to stop here and show this place off. I love places like this. Okay, now I'm on Highway 321 South, headed toward our next town. Fairfax was a pretty awesome experience, really cool place. Okay, I've made it down the road. Probably about close to 10 miles outside of Fairfax, and I come across this United States Post Office, Laurier, South Carolina, zip code 29932. And there's a store right here next door I want to check out. Okay, and right here next to the post office is this old wooden structure. Look at all the growth that has taken that thing over. And then I saw this little store when I was driving down Highway 321. We were coming from this direction. That was where I come from, Fairfax. I saw this cute little place. Used to have a hanging sign right up there. Look at this old rusted out equipment. Like an old workbench. Cut some wood. Got a vise over here. And a little blue birdhouse. Right here on a place called Hitch Street. And they have a little signage over here that I couldn't make out when I drove by. Cruise Farm Supply. Now let's go check out the general store, which is just on the opposite side of the post office. Right back down this way. Cornerstone General Store and Deli. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to still be open, but still, nonetheless, it just caught my fancy and I wanted to just stop by and check this place out. It does have an open sign up there, but it's not illuminated, but the hours are definitely still illuminated. It says it opens at 6 a.m. in the morning on Friday and closes at 6 p.m. in the evening, but I'm here in the early morning hours on Friday morning and nothing. It's absolutely closed, that is for sure, as you can see right there. Okay, I've made the short commute down here to the town of Estill, South Carolina. And look at this old relic they have here in the center of town, this old garden tractor. It reminds me of a tractor my grandpa used to have a little bit, even though I don't think his front tires were separated. They were actually together. His tractor looked more like a three-wheeler, but it was in that time period, if that makes any sense. So we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Estill. Estill actually rose from the ashes from another previous town. Before Estill existed, the nearby community of Lawtonville was the area's center. During Sherman's March to the Sea of 1865, Union troops largely destroyed Lawtonville. Although it was rebuilt, its fortunes changed forever when the railroad bypassed it. Okay, so this here is the old Lawtonville Church. And I think that is pretty awesome, because this church, the reason it's called the Lawtonville Church is because it predates the town of Estill. And this church is on the National Register of Historic Places, as you can see right here. That is pretty cool. So right here in front of the church, they do have an informational historic plaque. Lawtonville Church, the Baptist church constituted in March of 1775, was first situated on Pipe Creek in Upper St. Peter's Parish near the Savannah River. Prior to 1836, it was moved to Lawtonville, where its building was used as a hospital by Union forces in 1865. Pipe Creek Church became Lawtonville Church in 1884. The church moved here in 1911 when the present building was erected. So let's talk a little bit about population. Population here in Estill is 2,844, and the median age here is pretty good. It's 34.1. That's pretty young and healthy for a town like this. So now let's look at demographics. 11.45% is white, 82.71% is black, 5.84% is other race. Then when we look at the index income per capita is $24,865, well below South Carolina national. Median household income is $46,279, which once again is pretty low. And then when we scroll down, we take a look at poverty level here in Estill, 35.7. That's pretty high. And now let's look at crime. Crime here, not as high as Allendale, but still not very good. 5,306 per 100K, which equates to about 5.3 per 1,000 people will experience a crime here in this town. When we look at that in percentages, total crime is 150% higher than the national average. Look at violent crime, 504% higher than the national average. And then property crime is 78% higher than the national average. And that right there is an absolutely stunning home. I love this porch over here. It's kind of screened in. That gentleman there is loving his bicycle riding today. I've seen him like 8 times. He said hello all 8 times. Super cool. So let's get back into a little bit of history and talk about the railroad that helped create the town. So right over my shoulder here is the railroad that splits right down the center of town. And in 1900, the Seaboard Airline Railroad built a rail line connecting Augusta, Georgia to Savannah. A new town grew beside the tracks, and it was incorporated in 1905, replacing Lawtonville, and it was the town of Estill. So if you wanted to know where the name Estill come from, the town honors Colonel John Holbrook Estill, who played a key role in bringing the railroad and encouraging development here in the community. Throughout the 20th century, Estill's economy depended on timber, cotton, and other agricultural products shipped by rail. Lumber mills and farming businesses helped the town prosper for several decades. Okay, and speaking of cotton, this here is the old Estill Cotton Warehouse, built in 1910 to store cotton before it was loaded onto rail cars. It's got some pretty snazzy mural work going on here too. Look at that, Bull Durham. Okay, so real quickly, I just wanted to come down here on the far end of the old cotton warehouse and show you this cool Bull Durham smoking tobacco mural they got painted down here. I actually seen, that was the first thing I really noticed when I drove into town. That there is the direction we come from on 321. Fairfax is back up that way. So now I want to go across the road before we wrap this vlog up today and go check out this old gas station over here. They got a cool gas station. All right, I made my way over here to the Gulf gas station, but to my surprise, it is not a gas station anymore. They are fixing this place up. I seen pictures of this place online and it was kind of not the greatest looking in the world, but man, they have come in. They're actually going to turn this place into an eating spot with pancakes and coffee. And they actually said I can come inside and do a little walk around, and we're going to do that, but I just want to show you the outside first. I mean, look at these old gas pumps. That is awesome. That is so beautiful. Most of the time when I see gas pumps like this, they don't look very pretty. You know, they're very old and worn out. You can see the 2 bay doors right there. And look at this big boy over here. But instead of holding a hamburger, he's got a stack of pancakes. Hey, I'm a fan of both. I like hamburgers, as you know, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time. We've done some hamburger spots from, I like old hole-in-the-wall hamburger locations that most people probably never heard of. But yeah, this is an awesome place. Fuel up. So speaking of, let's go inside and see what it looks like. All right, so the guys invited us in. They're actually fixing up this old gas station and turning it into a pancake house. And I want you to look at all the Gulf stuff they have in here. We got neon sign, old gas pump right there. This here is like their diner area where you can eat. They got booths. Yeah, this is going to be cool. And if this works out really good, they're actually going to take this idea nationwide and just keep it kind of almost like a museum from the past. I love that concept. And then sell pancakes and serve people coffee. Who don't like that with a little museum flair to it? Because really, who goes to museums anymore? Okay, so I'm walking down the street now back into the town. Look at this old Coca-Cola mural right here on the wall. Yeah, I love the old Coca-Cola signage. All right, now I just want to kind of show you some of the storefronts here in the Estill, the downtown area. A lot of these places look to be closed up right in here. There's a few things open, but like this old heating and cooling building, ain't nothing going on there. Might be a storage room of whatnot. But look at this neon sign up here. It's called Wiggins. Wiggins and Sons Hardware. Yeah, that is a good one. Love that signage. Okay, so on these sets of buildings here, we're starting with the Wiggins and Sons Hardware. These stores here are open for business. So that's good. Not everything's closed. Just those first little sets of buildings look to be kind of abandoned and closed. This here is the Estill Community Pharmacy, which right there's their hours and their lights are on. They're actually open right now. Really cool. Got us a BP gas station right here. So right here on the corner of Martin Luther King Boulevard and 3rd Street, they have a nice little auto store right here called Bumper to Bumper. Okay, right over my shoulder, I did cross the railroad tracks. You can see the old auto parts store right behind me. I want to show you a few storefronts over here. Now this side of the street looks a little bit rougher. It's in not as well over here, and this is a really old building. Cause look, it's got those old like cubular, like glass fixtures up there that you see in really old stuff. Sometimes you see it on the fronts of like theaters and stuff like that. But yeah, this building right here not looking too good. Matter of fact, you can just walk in. Old peel and paint on the wall. But I got to tell you one thing about this building. It is quite cool in here. It feels really, really good. Take a little peek over here on this side. It looks like maybe at one point or another, somebody might have been squatting in here. There's like little makeshift beds with towels and stuff, blankets. Right over there's somebody's shoes. Right here. And according to the sign here on this corner, this is an old IGA store that is now currently for sale. And I'm thinking all this is part of it, because this building front here, this overhang being red and the brick being yellow, is definitely the colors for IGA stores. Okay, so now I walked across the way from the old IGA, and yeah, these storefronts here looked closed, somewhat abandoned. The carpet place, and then this is old furniture company. They got an old grocer and meats right here. You can see the ghost sign up there. Southern Home and Hardware. All this stuff is abandoned here in Estill. And then we have a Mexican restaurant that is actually open. So that is a good look of the downtown area here in Estill. There's one more thing I want to go see before we wrap our video up. There is a school that's close by that I read about online. And I want to go look at it real quick, and then we're going to wrap things up because it's about 98 degrees. It is very, very hot. Okay, as I was driving toward the school, I come across this place, and this is the old Estill Grain Elevator and Soybean Processing Complex. This place is huge. Okay, so I made my way down the road a bit here on 3rd Street, and I'm gonna look over the fence. This here is the old sign for the Estill Middle School. This school closed in 2012 due to decline in enrollment and very poor facilities and conditions. Old middle school out here just growing up. Nature taking it back, as they say. And they got an old information plaque right here on the property. It says Estill Rosenwald School served as the African American community 1926 to 1954. In 1954, a new school, Estill Training School, was built on the site, funded by the South Carolina Equalization Program Estill training also served African American students. Estill training became Estill Middle School in 1970 when federal court ruling required all South Carolina school districts to finally implement plans to racially integrate their schools. So on April 13th, 2020, an EF4 tornado, one of the strongest tornadoes in South Carolina's modern history, struck just south of Estill. The EF4 tornado devastated nearby Nicksville, killed 5 people, damaged the nearby federal prison, and became the state's first violent tornado since 1995. So when I first seen that this place was abandoned, I wasn't really sure if it was because of the tornado. It was not. It was a whole nother issue, obviously, with enrollment issues and things like that. But did want to throw that little bit of history out here about both this school being shut down because of enrollment issues, decline in population, and the EF4 tornado, which ravaged the southern part of the town here. So all that being said, I think I'm done today. I'm definitely hot enough. I'm very warm. I think it's a good time to wrap it up. I had a great day today. I hope you guys enjoyed the vlog. Had a good time checking out all these towns here in the low country of South Carolina. Love coming to South Carolina. All that being said, my friends, I'm done. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Hitchhiking Yeti, and I will see you on my next adventure. Y'all stay safe, and I hope to see you all again soon. And as we do, we can't really do it great today, but Estill is in that direction. Let's say so long to Estill. It's been grand. And say so long to the Estill Middle School, formerly the Estill Middle School.